Hello! Join us! Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday with the Emotional Entrepreneur Show with Summer and
Jen.
Woohoo! Here we are on Tuesdays. We love Tuesdays and hanging out with all of you because we get to grow our communities, raise each other's voices up, and we get to share great ideas about being an emotional entrepreneur. And that is a good thing. So you're ready to jump right into this, Jen?
Yep, let's do this.
Let's do it. Okay,
Ooh,
so
it's on. My cousin's on. Hey, man.
yeah, it's so cool. I'm so excited. I'm trying to just get up on LinkedIn to invite those LinkedIn folks. If you're on with us today, you know how fun this is and how we share great ideas. And it's not just about us sharing tips, about learning from one another. So invite your friends. Invite your folks that might be interested. And even if they're not entrepreneurs, trust me, what we talk about here applies to everyday life. So with that said, we're going to move into this subject. It's about bold moves and navigating risk and reward in business. And boy, howdy, there are some major rewards and yes, some calculated risks. So Jen, I'm going to turn it over to you for a sec.
Yeah, I love this one because I love them all, but I love this one because I will say personally for me, because I just tend to do a lot of things bold and uncalculated, but I'm not saying don't do that all the time in terms of not calculated. There is definitely a correlation between risk and reward. I mean, it's like that in the investment world. I remember back in the day, people go, "What's safe but has a high rate of return?" I'm like, it doesn't exist. You just can't. That's why savings accounts, as safe as those are barely going to give you 0.01 or whatever it is. It's like really sad. And then when you are willing to invest in the market, that's where you can get returns. So it's even in the investment world. And so when you apply it to business, there are going to be things that require you to take bold moves and take steps out in faith. You're not always going to know how it's going to turn out. And, even for my son, I have to encourage him. He was like, but what? He's such a warrior. But what if it doesn't work? But what if this happens? I'm like, CJ, is it happening right now? No. I'm like, then why are we talking about it? Like, you're focusing your energy on the wrong things. Focus on what's in front of you. Take that 1% move up and make that progress. And if something happens, when something happens, then figure it out at that time. But if you're focusing all your energy and mindset and everything on all the disastrous things that could happen, guess what's going to happen? Nothing. Not a damn thing. So with that said, let's get it going.
Oh no, I love what you said here because my mind was going as you were talking, and it's you had mentioned the financial aspects of this, the risk in the money world, right? And so we have investments, and when I talk to my investor, I'm like, okay, so she puts us at the middle of the road in regards to like low and high and middle of the road kind of medium investments, like risk, right? And so I'm like, I'm totally okay with that. I'm okay with like not being at high risk and making lots of money or like you dipping low. And my husband's like, yeah, medium risk is okay because don't worry, if it goes high, it goes low, it's all going to work itself out. Just leave it there. Right. And I was like, okay. But with that said, tell me more about, part of navigating risk and reward in business. Tell us more, Jen, maybe about, since you were in that financial or are still in kind of that money zone, about diversifying your investments.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, you guys might have heard the term, don't put all your eggs in one basket, that kind of thing. And that goes even for the types of assets, the types of investments. So maybe you have some real estate, maybe you have some savings, maybe you have, just a different mix of different things. And it's smart. It also depends on where you are in life. I'm not gonna, it's not like I could ask a 21-year-old, investor to, hey, go buy a whole portfolio of real estate. We started off small. We probably opened up a Roth IRA, something that they could do with what they had at that time. And then it builds. But even in the investment itself, let's say they did have a Roth IRA, we wanted to make sure that there was a good mix of different things. We had, and then it also depended on what their risk tolerance was. So like Summer was talking about, I use this analogy, and I think this is going to be the easiest one.
Okay.
How do you stomach the ups and downs of the market? Are you kind of like that person that wants the little baby rides at Disneyland? You kind of hang out at Fantasyland all day, or can you go on the medium rides? Like Space Mountain, and it's a little bit okay. There's a few little drops, but you can still stomach it. Or are you going to be like the ones that go to like Six Flags or Great American, all these crazy roller coasters you see where it's like a vertical drop, right? And then it just comes back up. What can you stomach?
Yeah.
That's what you have to think about first. And then you see what there is. And you have to be careful too. It's so easy, especially with things online. And this is what makes us, as when I used to be licensed, and even friends I talk to that are, CFPs, certified financial planners, and people that are licensed, like it's tough because there's so many people that can get online and just make all these recommendations, especially because they don't have licenses or they're not held clients. It's easy for influencers and whatnot who aren't licensed to just say, oh, go buy this, go do this, invest in this. And it's like, you got to be careful. You have got to be careful because they're not coming from a licensed perspective. And the part that sucks is that the people that are licensed can't say it. They can't do a live feed. They can't do a live stream. We had to get everything approved ahead of time. So that's a whole different discussion. So you just have to be careful with the advice that you hear online, and do the research, ask a few people, and then see if it's appropriate for you, because you can't just take some advice that you hear online and then go like, well, I heard someone say, go buy this. I mean, I have people do that to me all the time. Like, hey, I heard this. And I'm like, where did you hear this? That's my friend's brother. And I'm like, oh my God. And what does your friend's brother do? Like, oh, he's a manager at XYZ store. I'm just like, okay, be careful. Just be careful, be educated in your decisions. And just know, with going back to the original question about diversification, you want to have that. And the reason being is because with the way the economy ebbs and flows, you're going to have cyclical markets. You're going to have things that are doing, well, and then, sometimes there might be an election year. Sometimes there might be a war. Sometimes there might be whatever the heck is going on. It will affect different economies and different sectors. So that's why you see things I'm trying not to get into the weeds, but that's why with your, portfolio, you'll see like the pie chart move and change percentages because of the trading and what's going on. And so there's this thing where we call rebalancing, so that we can bring back order to like the original pie chart of, these are conservative, these are a little bit more moderate funds, and then these are totally safe. We always want to bring it back to the original mix because of all that stuff that's happening. And so when you have that diversification, it kind of helps, whatever the type of, amusement park ride you're on, it helps you stomach it better. It helps bring back order, but it's also to just bring back into alignment your investments alongside with your original investment goals.
Wow. That
I feel like we're like on CNBC.
We know what she's passionate about. And that is awesome, because that really helps us get it. I love this example though. I really do, Jen, because, and for those of you out there, I love this example because there's so much that you've touched on here in relation to when we're looking at bold moves in our business and we're looking at navigating risk and rewards. It's what's your level of comfort in the risk that you're taking? And I think that you need to be really clear about what is that. And I think for me, I'm a researcher, right? And so for me to do some of the research before I jump in and say, yeah, I'm all in, because I'm not one to like I'm not one to like, I believe all this, right? So let me do my research, because I'm not one to take things for face value, right? So let me step back. let me take a breather and let me do the research, because that means that I do less impulse. I'm less impulsive. I don't have as many impulsive purchases. I don't do things where I'm going to have a ton of money loss. Yes. Have I made those mistakes?
We all do.
Even with the research? Sure. Sure.
That's life. That's life. And but you know what, Summer, I'm glad that you share that, because we've all done that.
Yeah.
We've all done that. And you know, you can take the road and say, well, I don't want to lose anything, but I'm gonna tell you, I'll give you one example, going back to the investment stuff. There was a lady that, you know, I was trying to help. I was training my brother, he was an advisor at the time, and she had been working at a company. That's actually how he knew her. They were coworkers, and she was like 74, and she wanted to retire. She showed us what she had. It was her like 401k statement, and there was only like, I think, $40,000 in it. Something very, very small, some very, very small. And you know, when you don't know, you don't know. And then when I took a further look into what she had invested in, it was literally a money market. And for those of you, money market is like a glorified savings account. So this thing wasn't even making 1%. And it was so heartbreaking, because we had to tell her, like, you're not going to retire. You can't, like, you're not going to be able to live off of this for not even a year.
Yeah.
And she was invested in something so extremely safe. And that's the thing you have to take into consideration. And I'm not saying, go buy 100% of like Disney stock. I'm not saying that either, but be careful that when you are taking the option of, I'm going to just play it completely safe, just know it's not that you're not going to move forward. You're just going really, really slow, and you might outpace that by death. You're never gonna, I hate to be morbid, but like in this situation, she was gonna totally outlive her money. She wasn't gonna have enough. And sometimes when we're trying to be too safe, you're gonna look back one day and go like, man, I didn't get to write that book. I didn't get to take that trip with my kids, my grandkids. And there's going to be these things you're going to reflect back on, whether it's personally or professionally in your business or your career. You just ask yourself, am I going to look back one day and wish I took some moves to actually do it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's all those suggestions are very important, because I think that example about that woman outliving her money, was she advised correctly? Did she do some of the research? Did she seek expert advice? And I think that's really important when we're looking at bold moves. Bold moves could be very very researched. Bold moves could be you've gained the information that you needed to take that bold move. Bold moves doesn't mean impulsive.
Right.
Bold moves, there's a distinct difference between impulsivity and being bold. And so you can be bold, what I would call smartly, do it with research. Talk to an expert like you would with Jen if you were going into the money zone or the financial arena, right? Here's what I see, and I'm going to give another example of this. So there are a lot of coaches and a lot of people out there touting a lot of information. And there's a distinct line between therapy and coaching. And I believe that I see a lot of times people doing therapy. You get into a serious situation when you do that. And again, like in the money arena, you need to be licensed to do therapy. And so if you're giving information out there, one, you raise the risk of hurting other people. That's false information, uninformed information. That's information that's going to take somebody down the road where it may not be exactly the information that is the best to support their needs and to reduce their risk. You're upping your risk, you're upping your liability. So again, when we talk about bold moves, it can be in a lot of different arenas, whether or not you're a coach, you're into the money arena, you're a therapist. I mean, and here's one thing I would say. When you're in any business, look at, this is just me, and this is what I do. and this is from my perspective, look at your liability, right? Look at the moves that you're making and see if you're willing to take those risks. One of the things that I always do to reduce my risk too is liability insurance. I know that when I start moving into a sphere and I'm going to become more involved in that sphere, that business, that I want to make sure that I am covered in certain ways with research, making sure I get expert advice. Maybe that's liability insurance, setting clear goals. Like there's so many things that I'm going to do to make those bold moves. Have I been a little bit more impulsive? Absolutely. I think we all have been there, right? And that isn't a bad thing necessarily, because I think even when I made those bold impulsive moves, I still gained wisdom from those moves. They weren't mistakes, and I don't call them mistakes. I called them moving forward based on wisdom, right? And so you also, with those moves, and when you do kind of have a step back or a side step or whatever you want to call it, a twist in the road, I think that adds to your resiliency and your ability to be able to get back up. We're all going to have those things, but how are you getting back up? So when you're navigating risk and reward in your business, how are you getting back up? How are you staying up? How are you navigating taking those bold moves? Jen?
I like the part about the being impulsive. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And I agree with that, because sometimes when you do act that way, depending, regardless of how calculated it is or not, it allows you to see what you're made of. It allows you to see what your tolerance level is. But I think some of the things that you really gain from it is also, like you said, the wisdom, but you also learn the lessons and you see what was possible. You see how you could navigate through that if something went wrong. You learn where that limit is, and then you're able to kind of like stretch the container. You're able to see, hey, can I take on more the next time? Or hey, you know what, I learned from last time. Maybe, I'm not saying go all the way back and not pursue something, but you start to see where your gauge is.
Yeah.
And that's where you learn so many things. That's where you start to see, like, this is where you also, flex your creativity. You start to realize, like, okay, if I do it this way again, what can I do to mitigate it? Or how do I structure this differently? Whether it's a deal, whether it was an event, whether it was a program you did, you're going to learn from those mistakes and those failures and everything that happened. And that is a good thing. That is a good thing. Like, it is just a part of the success. And I think too often what we're doing is we're trying to separate it. But we only want to win, and it's only all about success. Well, where do you think the people that have achieved that got it from? By messing up constantly, learning from it, and then going back and doing something different, or trying to tweak it, or figure out, how do I restructure this? And that's where the value in that experience comes from, where you're realizing, like, okay, I stretched myself. And that happens to me every freaking year. Like, I do something crazy, and then I'm like, okay, like right now, I'm really like, I took on way too much this quarter. That's okay. Am I beating myself up for it? No. I just tell myself, all right, I need to just slow down for the rest of the year and then finish out all these other things that I tried to squeeze in Q2. It's just so I was literally just doing that, like right before this call. I was just doing an assessment, and I was just like, okay, this is the reality of it. What do I do now? And that's what I'm saying. Like, you see where your tolerance level is, you see how you need to adjust, and it just makes you better. It makes you plan better. It makes you have, more insight and wisdom and how to move forward. So, as much as, being impulsive can sometimes get a bad rap, I do want to highlight the benefits of it, that there is good that does come out of it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think we need to embrace uncertainty and view it as an opportunity, right? Rather than maybe a threat. I think that sometimes we're just so uncertain, right? Because maybe we haven't been out there in this realm before. And that's why I think it's really important to connect with people who you trust, people who are in the business, people who kind of have been there and done that. because I think that gives you more of a foundation to learn from, more of a foundation to tap into, and a resource and a community to tap into to say, hey, can I bounce something off of you? What are your thoughts? It doesn't mean that you have to agree or that you have to go down that same path, but at least you're doing your due diligence to tap into something rather than just being totally going in it blind. And I don't think that, you have to dismiss creativity or dismiss uncertainty. Not at all. I think a lot of us come from different backgrounds, right? And
Mhm.
so, and I want to bring this into the picture too, because this deals with the emotional component of it. And I think that some of us were pushed into a survival mode very early on. We had to survive. We didn't have a whole lot of people we could count on. We had to get out there and work very early, and we were put into this. So we were taking risks just by the nature of it, organically, because you didn't have a whole lot to hold on to in regards to help, support, whatever. So you're in the survival mode. Well, when you get into a situation like a business, I don't think you necessarily have to be in a survival mode, and you can turn that into a thriving mode. And it can be with taking creative risks. It can be with taking these really unique steps to take bold moves. That's why we're giving the tips today to say, how can you do that? How can you do that with more thought? When I was younger, let me give you an example. When I was younger and going to buy a car, if I like something right off the bat, I'm like, oh my God, yes, I want this car. I want this car. I don't care what the percentage rate is in regards to, like, the loan. I do not care. I love this car. But today I'm like, do I even want a new car? Like, like, am I going to take that? Will I get a better interest rate? Yes, I will. Like, I'm looking at all the variables, right? Like, it's so take a step back, take a breath. It's okay to take some bold moves. It's okay to be impulsive at times, because trust me, I am. And yet, because Jen and she's been in this entrepreneurial world for a while, for a long, many, many years. And, I think not so much today, but back when I first started, like, I could be in such a traditional job and I know what would be coming in. I know what would be going out. With entrepreneurship, it is a risk. There is a risk inherently in entrepreneurship, right? And so, what I would say too, when it comes to taking risks and making bold moves, is start small. You don't have to go big or go home. Like, it's it's
Yeah, that
not
that
the,
bro marketing.
yeah, right, right.
Go big or go home. You
Go
know what's
big
so
or
funny?
go home. Tell
Side
bro
side note,
marketing.
I saw that meme and I saw somebody wrote in the comments like, "Fine by me. I wanted to go home anyways." Like I'm like, that's me.
I love that pro
I'm done.
marketing.
Yeah, I'm
That's
done with it all. I
awesome.
wanted to go home anyways.
That was cute. So I would say just start small and pilot your ideas on a smaller scale. Like, just understand, test their viability, understand what that is, understand that you can commit to certain resources. You don't have to commit to all of everything, right? You can start small. You don't have to jump all in. By using this tip, you can really just test the waters, understand what that looks like, understand, more importantly, what that feels like to you. Because if you feel so out of realm, it unbalanced, what's the word that I'm looking for, unbalanced, I think that's not going to work. You need to listen to yourself as well and what you feel comfortable with. Because if you don't feel comfortable riding those rides, as Jen said, at Great America or Six Flags or whatever it is, and taking that high risk, because you got high ups, high downs, potentially. But if you're okay with that medium risk, that's okay. If you're okay with that lower risk, that's okay. But you can start small. Even, let's say, for instance, if you want to start a business or you want to go more into your business and get more integrated into your personal business, well, it doesn't mean you have to leave your traditional job. It just means you need a plan. So what's your plan? What does your plan look like? Do you have a plan to make that bold move? And again, it can be small steps. It can be building a team. It could be making sure that you have, financial health. Well, just starting out. And there's just so much here that we can talk about. But I think what's most important here is how you're going to navigate it, how you're feeling about it, and what you're going to do about it. Are you going to take that risk? Are you going to stop yourself from taking that risk? I had this conversation with my husband last night, and we are going deep about taking some risks. And he's more conservative. And I get it. Like, I totally get where he's coming from. And on the other hand, I don't want to fear potential risk. I don't want to fear it where it's holding me back, where, oh my gosh, I'm going to look back and say, I didn't do that because I was afraid. That to me is not okay. It feels very uncomfortable to stay in that position. It feels like that's stagnant. There's lack of movement. And it feels like it's a place I don't want to be in. And so when you're feeling that way, you've got to take a deep dive and go, okay, what's my plan then? What's my plan? And here's the thing, when you're in business, you're working with all kinds of people, even in your personal life, you're working with your partner, you're working with different people. You got to understand and take into consideration how they're feeling. I get it. But you also need to understand, where's this saying keeping you, both emotionally, physically, spiritually, mindset. Where are you if you're staying in the same place and not getting where you want? Jen?
Yeah, I know that's tough. I was having this conversation with my best friend the other day, and she was talking about how she keeps running into people that keep saying, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to, I want to create this XYZ, and they're not. And then she was getting frustrated, and I said, it's a mindset thing. I said, well, you have to understand, like, not everybody is willing to take the first step. They're not willing to take the risk. And like you said too, it doesn't always have to be this big scary thing. We're not saying go quit your job. And I mean, not everybody is supposed to be an entrepreneur. We get that. We're not saying that either. But whatever the heck it is that you want to do and you've been saying it for a while, like, my thing is, I don't want to hear complaining. Like, you have 5 minutes and then I'm done with it. And then if you want to do it, then do it. But if you're going to keep saying you're going to do it and then you don't do the first thing, I don't want to hear it anymore. I just don't. And that's the part that's just frustrating. And I had somebody else on, well, why do you get so mad, Jen? I said, because I want everybody to win. I want everybody to win. That's just more fun. I want everybody to win. And then he said, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I was like, yeah, I know you think I'm crazy, but no, I want everybody to win. But you have to want to win for yourself first. And you need to make that decision. As scary as it may seem, then don't make it scary. What is the smallest thing you could do first to push you into that direction, and do that? And then figure out what the next thing is. I think too often we're trying to go from step 0 to step 20 and wondering why it's not happening, and then asking ourselves, like, man, I mean, we run into this all the time. People that talk about something they want to do and it's been years. I mean, I think get to a point where you just like, okay, either decide I don't want to do it anymore, it's not going to happen, or say, this is the day, this is the first thing I need to do is this. And you will feel so good. And then you realize all I have to do is the next one, and then the next one, and take little steps forward. Because, one of the things that motivates me is I don't want to look back one day and go, I didn't do those things. Yeah. You don't get to your deathbed and say, man, I did too much. I did all the things. It might include, like, me. And then, this is a totally different topic, but it might include, maybe you didn't spend time enough with your family, loved ones, and that's a whole balance thing. But specifically with going after your dreams and your goals, you owe that to yourself to say, what can I do so that I do feel good? I want to feel accomplished. I want to feel that I did that purpose in life that I destined myself out to do. So whatever that is, we just want to encourage you, just take that small step. It doesn't have to be something big and crazy and, give up everything. It doesn't have to be that way, even though I know a lot of stuff online may make it sound like that's the way to go. It's not for everybody. but you have to find that one thing that's going to work for you to just push the needle forward even 1%.
Yeah, love that, Jen. It is so important, even that 1%. And I want to put this out there too. And before we get too deep into this, remember when you're working with other people too, and you're looking at bold moves and navigating risks and rewards, remember they come from a different perspective. They may have come from a different upbringing. They may have had different resources. So they're going to have a different mindset about taking bold moves. They might have people who are there to support them when they fall. They might have more of a foundation of people around them to kind of be there to say it's going to be okay, or to naturally say, okay, you can be here and we're going to support you in your efforts. So just remember, everybody comes from a different space too. So if you're feeling insecure about something, and maybe you've always had to be in a survival mode, you know, just look at it and like Mike says here, chunk it down into manageable steps. And I think, as I said earlier, small steps. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? And I think those small steps are really important. And doing your research and building a community around you, like we are here. That's why I think it's so important for people to be here, because this is a community where we can support each other and exchange ideas. On that note, because Jen has to jump here. Jen, your nugget.
I just thought of something. Bold steps could be, bold step. One small bold step is better than no step. So what is that one step you can take? What is that one thing that you've been saying you're going to start that you haven't started, and think of the next small step? Because I'm just like on that right now, so one small step is better than no step.
Yeah,
How about you, Summer?
Well, I would say, listen to your emotions. Don't get caught up in them, but listen to them. Don't over catastrophize and go, oh my God, it's all or nothing and I can't do this. Just listen to them. Breathe them in, embrace them, and take a step back. And then I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Jen said. Start listing some of those small first steps, because I think that will make you feel better in knowing that you now have a plan and you feel good emotionally and in balance about that plan. That's my nugget.
Oh, I'm going to read what Mike said.
Yes, please.
Him and his wife Karen talked about this morning. One simple decision can change your life. Yes. One simple decision can change your life. Absolutely. It totally can. And here's the thing that's so crazy. Like, it could be the smallest thing, and you will look back one day and realize, like, wow, I had no idea that one simple, small decision was going to have this big of an effect.
Yeah.
And it happens so often in your life, more than you realize.
Oh, absolutely. This is a great place to end. Thank you for that comment, Mike. And thank you, Jen. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I love our Tuesdays. It's so uplifting and inspiring. So thank you, everybody. You ready to dance this out, Jen?
Dance this out.
All right. Woo!
Yes, Cassidy. Gray.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for being here with us.